I'm Laura. Let me take you on a journey that transformed my life in ways I never imagined. Picture this, a seemingly idyllic suburban neighborhood where the sun shines brightly and everything appears perfect. But beneath the surface, my life was a complex tapestry woven with threads of hope and despair. It was a sunny afternoon when Michael and I sat in our cozy living room, the silence broken only by the relentless ticking of the clock. Michael's voice, filled with optimism, broke through the stillness. "Why don't we try another doctor, Laura? There has to be someone who can help." I sighed, the weight of years of unsuccessful treatments pressing heavily on my chest. "I don't know, Michael. It feels like we've seen every specialist in the state." Michael reached for my hand, his eyes sincere and unwavering. "We can't give up. We're in this together, remember?" His words were a lifeline, anchoring me in a sea of uncertainty. But just as I began to feel a flicker of hope, the storm clouds gathered. The doorbell rang, and there stood Evelyn, Michael's mother, her presence commanding, her gaze icy. "Michael, we need to talk." "Alone," Evelyn said, her tone sharp, her eyes darting toward me with thinly veiled contempt. Reluctantly, Michael followed her to the kitchen. Their hushed voices were impossible to ignore. "Michael, you need to think about your future. This situation with Laura isn't going anywhere," Evelyn declared, her voice as cold as steel. "Mom, I love Laura." "We're not giving up on having a family," Michael replied, his tone resolute. Evelyn's next words sliced through me like a dagger. "You need someone who can carry on the family name. Maybe it's time to consider other options." That night, as we lay in bed, Michael wrapped his arms around me. "Don't listen to her, Laura. We'll prove her wrong," he whispered. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to flicker anew when I finally saw 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. Michael and I were over the moon. But our joy was short-lived. During a family dinner, Evelyn's toxic words poisoned the air. "A baby with her health issues? Let's see how long this lasts," she muttered, just loud enough for us to hear. A lump formed in my throat, but Michael's reassuring squeeze under the table reminded me that we were in this together. The months that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. We prepared the nursery, painting the walls a soothing pastel blue, and imagined the life we'd share with our baby. But then, tragedy struck. Complications during labor shattered our dreams, leaving us heartbroken. Our baby boy didn't make it. As Michael and I held each other, our tears mingling, Evelyn's cruel words echoed in my mind. "I told you so." Yet, in our despair, we refused to surrender. "Our love is stronger than any obstacle, Laura. We'll get through this," Michael assured me, his voice a balm to my aching soul. Months passed, and just when hope seemed a distant memory, a miracle happened. I was pregnant again. The joy we felt was indescribable, like sunlight piercing through storm clouds. We embraced this new beginning with cautious optimism. When our daughter Emma was born, she was perfect in every way. Her tiny hands, her soft cries, they filled our hearts with love we'd never known. "We did it, Laura. She's here, and she's perfect," Michael whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. But happiness can be as fragile as glass. Evelyn and her daughter Grace arrived for a family gathering, their smiles strained, their congratulations hollow. Evelyn's cold gaze settled on Emma. "A girl, huh? Well, let's hope she stays healthy," she remarked, her words laced with malice. I brushed off the discomfort, focusing on the joy in my arms. Yet, the universe had more trials in store. Emma fell ill suddenly, her tiny body unable to fight. Despite the doctor's efforts, we lost her. Our world, once filled with her laughter, was now suffocatingly silent. At Emma's funeral, the air was heavy with grief. Friends and family wept openly, but Evelyn and Grace stood apart, their demeanor unsettling. No tears, no sorrow, only whispers and smirks that cut through the solemnity like a blade. As I stood by Emma's tiny coffin, heartbroken, I overheard Grace whisper, "Can you believe it? Another one gone. Maybe it's a sign." Evelyn chuckled softly. Perhaps Michael will finally see sense and leave her, she murmured. Their laughter was a slap in the face, a cruel mockery of our pain. Anger surged within me, my heart pounding. How could they be so heartless? They're doing this? I whispered to Michael, my voice trembling as if it might shatter under the weight of disbelief. His gaze followed mine, locking onto them. I saw his expression shift, confusion giving way to a look of pure disgust. Talk to them, he said firmly, but I was already moving, each step fueled by a mix of grief and fury. Really, Evelyn? I began, my voice quaking with emotion. Smiling? At a time like this? What's wrong with you? She turned, her smile faltering before morphing into a smirk that only stoked my anger. Oh, Laura, she drawled, her tone dripping with mockery. Always so dramatic. We were just what? I cut her off, my voice rising, trembling with rage. Celebrating my daughter's death? A hush fell over the crowd as their curious murmurs grew louder, all eyes turning toward us. Michael was at my side now, his face a mixture of anger and heartbreak. Mom, this is unacceptable, he said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. You're at a funeral. Evelyn stammered, trying to explain. We were just talking about. About what? I snapped, my voice nearly a scream now. How happy you are that my daughter is gone. My grief, raw and untamed, boiled over into fury. Grace, ever the master of feigned concern, stepped in with a syrupy tone. Laura, you're overreacting, she said smoothly. We're just as sad as everyone else. No, you're not. I shot back, my words sharp enough to cut glass. You've never wanted me to be happy, not with Michael, not with Emma. You've always wanted me gone. The confrontation had reached its peak, the tension in the air palpable. Michael, resolute, placed a steadying arm around me. I can't do this anymore, Mom, he said, his voice unyielding. Your constant negativity, your disdain for Laura, it's too much. I can't have you in our lives if this is how you're going to act. Evelyn's face twisted in a storm of shock and indignation. Michael, you can't be serious. She's manipulating you. No, Mom, he replied, his voice steady. For the first time, I'm seeing things clearly. With that, we turned away, leaving them standing amidst the whispers of the crowd. That day, a line was drawn, marking the end of our relationship with Evelyn and Grace. Michael stood by me, and together, we faced the world, united in grief and love. In the weeks that followed, our home became a sanctuary. We mourned in peace, away from judgmental eyes and the shadows of toxicity. Each evening, as we navigated our sorrow, Michael would remind me, we'll get through this, Laura. Together. And we did. Together, we began to heal, slowly rebuilding our lives around the gaping hole Emma had left behind. Years passed, and with time came blessings. For beautiful children filled our home with laughter and love, transforming a space once steeped in sorrow into a haven of joy. But questions arose as they grew older. Why don't we see Grandma Evelyn, they would ask, their innocent curiosity tugging at old wounds. We shielded them from the past, keeping the bitterness and pain of those years locked away. That is, until the phone call came. Evelyn was gravely ill, her time slipping away. She wanted to see us, to meet the grandchildren she'd never known. The news sent a storm of emotions crashing through me. Why now, Michael? I asked, my voice a mix of confusion and bitterness. I don't know, Laura, he replied, torn. But she's still my mother. Maybe we should let her meet the kids, just once. After much soul-searching, I agreed, not for Evelyn, but for Michael, and perhaps for our children. When the day came, Evelyn walked into our home, frail and aged, a shadow of the woman who once wielded words like daggers. Our children greeted her politely, their innocence a stark contrast to the history that hung in the air like a thick fog. As I watched her with them, a flicker of regret flashed in her eyes, but it was too late. The wounds were too deep, the chasm between us insurmountable. Later that night, as the children slept, Evelyn turned to me, her eyes heavy with weariness. Laura, I know I've made mistakes. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Her words, long overdue, landed softly but failed to stir forgiveness in my heart. Evelyn, I appreciate your apology, I said, my voice firm yet calm. But I can't forget what you did, how you made us feel when we needed support the most. Michael, steady as ever, added, Mom, we've moved on. We've built a happy life without the negativity you brought into it. Evelyn nodded, a single tear trailing down her cheek. I understand, she said quietly. I just needed to say it, to try and make things right before it's too late. As she left that night, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. The chapter marked by her bitterness had finally closed. We had moved on, and in our children's laughter, I saw a bright future, unburdened by the past. We did the right thing, Michael said. Yes, we did, I replied, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Our journey, though marked by trials and tribulations, was ultimately one of love and resilience. But it leaves a question lingering in the air. If you were in Laura's place, would you have let Evelyn meet your children in her final days? Is compassion more important than past grievances, especially when someone seeks forgiveness at the end of their life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.